Johnny boy, let's welcome Taylor Moore back to the show. How's things going, palsy?
Man, it's going great. Glad to be back. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, didn't learn the last time, did you? Before you
No,
agreed to the
I
second
didn't. I didn't learn
time,
my lesson. I forgot. A year's a long time, and you forget
yeah,
what
it's a
you're not
long
supposed to
time.
do again. But here I
Uh,
am.
don't say a
So maybe I'll
year.
write it
Oof,
down this time. I
felt like a
know.
month. Well,
I
hey,
know.
Sean and I, Chris, we're huge fans of Downrange and Garrett Kohl. Um, why don't you give us the lay of the West Texas land style preview of what readers can expect from Firestorm?
Yeah, so Firestorm picks up probably 9 months, I think, after Downrange ends. And if you remember Downrange, I sort of wrap up a lot of the immediate stuff, and then I leave a few things. I leave a few things hanging for book two, and so
Mhm.
so Garrett, so he's still got, he's kind of he was taking on the Garza cartel, but some of those, the head was still left and all that. So book two starts out with him down in Mexico on this sort of crazy rendition and assignment to take down Emilio Garza. And so the book begins, pretty high octane, a lot of fun. And
Yeah.
then so he's sort of, Garrett just wants to get back and have a normal life. He's lived in war zones, he's lived undercover. He just wants to go back and be a normal guy. And unfortunately, that's not going to happen. So he goes back home, and he's invested in his ranch. He's trying to get the ranching operation back going. He's put a lot of money into it, a lot of resources, only to find out that Talon Corp, which has come in and take over for Mescalero Exploration, which people will remember from Downrange,
Mm.
they've taken over, and he thinks, oh my gosh, these guys are going to start drilling on the property again, oil wells here and there. Well, that actually would have been great. What it turns out is they bought the minerals to mine, and they're into looking for rare earth minerals. And so in fact, what happens is he learns that his property is going to be destroyed. All his resources are going to be taken. They're going to pump out the water and do all these things that he needs for his operation. So he sort of politely, Garrett being Garrett, starts to push back in a way that's, within the law, tries to do things the right way. But Talon Corp doesn't play by those rules, and they start pushing back really hard. In fact, they push back so hard that it puts his family's life in danger. And so the ball starts rolling from here, and he starts to investigate more heavily. And the more you sort of peel back the onion, he gets with his CIA contacts and starts finding out what's going on. And it turns out these guys are bad news. They've been all over the world, and they have a heavy hand to the point of assassinations and torture and that kind of thing. And so, they think surely this couldn't happen down in Texas. Well,
Hmm.
look out. So I'll kind of leave it right there. But that's kind of where just to kind of tee up where Firestorm sort of
Yeah.
begins. Yeah.
Well, you started to touch on it a little bit, and let me ask you this: is obviously authors want to see their characters change and grow, and Garrett being your protagonist, obviously the lead role there, and just like real life, we change, we adapt, we kind of become maybe a little bit different of a person down the road. So, how did you envision Garrett Kohl's journey from book one to book two in terms of maybe changes in himself because of what happened in book one?
So that's a great question, because it was something that I dwelled on a lot, and I thought about a lot, because there was that temptation, in Downrange. Garrett was kind of a broken man. The family was broken. Everything was broken.
Yeah.
And I didn't want it to get stuck in that. There's a temptation to do it because that was a big part of the story. And it was a story that a lot of readers really liked, but I didn't want him to sort of get stuck, because we've all seen, whether it's, books or movies or whatever, and you're kind of like, let's grow, let's adapt. And so I wanted him to grow. And I think he did. I think he's sort of moving beyond that sort of broken man and sort of finding himself again, finding who he is, and having repaired and mended some of those fences back at home. It's allowed him to sort of figure out who he wants to be, and who he wants to be really is just a normal guy. He doesn't, he's still in the DEA, and he's doing all that. But this idea of just being sort of a lone wolf out there, like he's been for years, just doesn't appeal anymore. He's got people to take care of. He's got people that love him. And so he's trying to figure out how he fits into this new world. And that's kind of where that's where we are with him in Firestorm.
Awesome.
Kind of building off that same sort of growth, as in Downrange, one of the strong themes in Firestorm has to do with family, both the ones we're born into and the ones we create. And I loved how certain relationships have progressed and others, in some cases, had done a one step forward, two steps back, mirroring real life. You infuse the killer plot in both books, and but they both resonate so strongly with me because that theme and all its implications. So my question is this: do you build that theme of family into the plot, or do your plots flow from the effort to present that theme?
Okay, that's a good question, and I don't know. I never think about it in that way. I guess, it all sort of comes about organically, and I don't even really know what that means. I sort of have this, I sort of take this family and I drop them into this horrible situation, and everybody just sort of reacts how they're going to react, if you know what I mean. So the family dynamics, I don't really have it planned out per se, but the dynamics exist. And so and I'm not like a super artsy guy when it comes to writing, but the one thing where I do get kind of artsy, and I'll say there is a magic to it, is how the page comes alive. And as a writer, people always ask me, they're like, well, how do you write? How do you just sit there and write a story? And I'm like, I really don't even know. I just, I'll sit there, I'll start a chapter, and I'll say, Garrett's going to be in a room with his girlfriend, or Garrett's going to be in a room with his dad, and they're going to have a conversation. Wonder what they're going to say, you know what I mean? And so the dynamic, all this stuff that, the overarching plot and the mystery and the thriller part of this is going on, but how everybody's going to react to it is kind of a mystery to me. And so those relationships, they play out in a way that I don't even know how they're going to play out. It's just, I've built their personalities in my mind. So I just put them there and let them react to it. Does that answer the question, or
yeah, that's what I was going to say. So it sounds like it's almost neither. It's you built these characters, and they are very distinct characters. Even the smallest ones in the book, I can picture them so well. And you create the scenario, and then basically the themes of family just kind of seem to happen as they would among these people that you've created. So that's kind of,
for me, it almost sounds like it's an organic thing for you, Taylor, just because you probably live that type of life. And so for you, that's a normal thought process. And Sean and I and Chris, I think we all kind of have that similar notion about life purpose in general. So for me, it doesn't seem like you forced it. It just kind of feels like it's just happening because that's the way it's supposed to be. So I think for me, that was a huge appeal. And I know Sean too. So
it is, and it's a strange thing. I mean, I think most authors will tell you that it's weird because every character in the novel is you in some form or fashion, and for people writing serial killers, I don't really know how how they explain that. Although I had a great conversation at Thriller Fest about that with the guy who does write those things, and he said, well, I'm writing the good guys too, and so I was like, that is true. Yeah, he's writing so, but yeah, the point being is that, they're all based on your own experiences of how either you've reacted or someone else has reacted. And so, you live enough life, you see enough things happen, and they end up in the book,
Right. Well, speaking of the book, at the very beginning, we see a lot. It's almost like a mismatch of characters. You've got Guatemalan special forces hitmen, cartel bosses, and you got Americans from a number of different law enforcement agencies and an agency woman. So, in this collage of characters of this, in this early storyline, do you have knowledge of that the border regions of our country see maybe a lot more cooperation between agents and agencies because of just the vast territories that they're covering? Or, when you think about a lot of stories, it's like the FBI this or the CIA that, and you've got like 100 million people from different organizations trying to come together to take care of one mission. And so is that more in line with what you see kind of that vast wildlife down in South Texas? Or
the border in Texas, or I guess the border anywhere, is an unusual place. It's still the Wild West in many ways, and you can go online and I don't know about recently, but you can see people in Texas, recording what they're seeing in a city right across the border, and it sounds like Iraq or Afghanistan in the middle of the war days. and that's just right over there. That's happening right next to us. And, you know, there's this lawlessness, and what really protects you? I mean, nothing. You know, it's a boundary line, and so you do see this sort of conglomeration in places like Texas, where you have that border of all these groups coming together because everybody's got a different role to play. I mean, including the military, local law enforcement, all the agencies. Everybody comes together. So I did put this sort of this mashup of some kind of fun characters between the CIA, DEA, Texas Rangers. You know, and this one particularly, I picked a Ranger reconnaissance team guy, and that was fun because I got to go meet with a guy who'd retired with that. That's sort of the Texas Rangers special operations team that's down on the border, and you know, to get those stories from those guys and what it's like to be down there and all that craziness. It's wild and it's fun, and so it sounds a little bit over the top, but I don't. It's not that over the top. It's probably not as over the top as people would think. And you've got those guys like you know, we learned recently about BORTAC. You know, I you know, that's the Border Patrol. They have their special operations guys. Those guys are high speed. I met with one of those guys, talked to them. About, you know, so I do my research and try to figure out what's going on, and yeah, it was a fun place to write about because, and then again, you know, I write about Lake Amistad. Well, it's strange, right? I mean, you got this big gigantic lake that sort of is part Mexico and part, you know, United States, and really there's no wall, or I mean, it's just you know, there's this mysterious imaginary line there that everybody's supposed to sort of recognize, but yeah, a lot of craziness goes on down there. That was one thing was for certain when I did my research, you know, that a lot of things you never hear about happen down there. So I wanted to capture that, and I think there's a fun scene, and I'm kind of, I like weird things. I like trying to find things that not everybody's talking about, like the Texas Ranger reconnaissance team. Nobody talks about that or really knows about that. So I wanted to include what those guys are doing. They're doing important work, and then you talk about the Guatemalan and the Kabyles, you know, like, so when I used to work Latin American militaries, you know, when I was doing an intel work, the Kabyles were always sort of fascinating to me. Always, I mean, they're a high speed, you know, group of soldiers that are within the Guatemalan military that are hard nailed, you know, just guys you would not want to mess with. So to me, it was fun to be able to put them in there and give them a place in fiction. I don't know that they've ever been included. Maybe they have.
As the first time I've read that. So for me, it really caught my attention.
Yeah. So I thought, you know, people will be Googling those guys just because that's what I do when I read a book. I'm like, I've never heard of this. Well, you know, Google it and you'll find some neat stuff. You know?
Yeah. Well, and I was going to say, it didn't read over the top at all. And B, I think you said you like to write about stuff like that. We all like to read about stuff like that. Every time we again, especially as many books as we have to read and do read, and we talk about every time there's something novel that's like, oh wow, I've never heard of that, or you know, what's this all about? That it's rare when you read a ton. And it's always a pleasure. So that was really a cool aspect of the book.
Right.
Well, good.
So in the book, I'm not going to give too much away. You actually gave probably more than I'm going to give away in your
okay.
But foreign interference, whether it be in elections, social media, or hardened cyber systems, is something we hear about constantly in our world.
Yeah.
And without spoiling too much, a foreign power is working in a very active way under the auspices of a domestic company. And as I read that, I literally in my head was like, with your background, I wondered how much of this is based in reality or based in, you know, at least rumor among the intelligence agencies. Do you think things of a similar scale as to what you portray in the book are happening or possible? And if so, is it a case that intelligence can only cover so much, or is it a case of people in political power just simply not keeping their eye on the ball?
So that's a great question, and I address a lot of that in the book. You know, so for your first question, yes, I do think these things are going on. I think they're going on all the time, and they are going on, and that's just the reality. And you know, people like the FBI are watching. It's not that they're not trying to you know, uncover these plots. They are. But it does get tricky. It does get tricky because, you know, particularly when you're dealing with U.S. persons, they may be a front for someone. They may not even know they're a front, but they are. And so how do you go after these things that are where people are sort of these puppet masters, in the back and doing things overseas, using these front companies? It's hard. It's not that they're not working on it, they are, but it's difficult to sort of isolate that and prosecute it. But on your, you mentioned the sort of political and financial part of that does make it difficult, because some of these groups come in with lots of money and they start throwing it around.
Yeah.
And there are people that obviously are going to be drawn in by that, and they're going to say, like, I see nothing wrong here. Everybody's making money. What's the problem? Well, if you read the book, you'll find out the problem, right? There is a problem. And so that's where people sort of get blinded by that flash and the money and the power and all these things that come along with some of these foreign powers coming in and mucking around in our country. And, we're seeing stuff now. I don't know if you kept up, the Chinese buying farmland next to military
air base.
I mean, it's weird, and it's hard, if you were somebody, that owned that land, and they came in and offered you 10 times its value or something. I don't know. I mean, who wouldn't think about it,
Right.
and especially if, because some of the, our politicians are coming out saying there's nothing wrong with it. These guys aren't doing anything wrong. They just want farmland. It seems fishy though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't.
It's very much asleep at the wheel at the politician level. I mean,
Well,
yeah.
I mean, it's like spitting distance to one of our military bases. Like, come on. I mean,
so there you go. So at some point we gotta like use that common sense, that God gave us, and go, this seems too weird. Some of these things may be legitimate. Some of them may not be. So
Yeah.
let's watch it. And I think people are watching it. But yeah, so I think that was fun to write about in the book. And I think it's going to make people think and think, what is going on? Because, we look at some of these people now, the world is getting more dangerous every single day. And,
right.
and you see what's going on, and you know what these countries are doing, and they hate us and they're enemies. And why wouldn't they be doing what I say they're doing in the book?
Right.
They are.
Oh,
and that's the thing I wanted to tell you is, so I was fully entertained and engaged in the fictional story, and never did that draw me out. But after I was done with the book, I really thought a lot about those aspects, and because I've been paying a lot of attention to what the Chinese have been able to do in this country, not just in this country, in this world. I mean, the Silk Road Initiative and I forget what the one in the ocean's called, but it's something silk something. And that really, this book really does play around with your thoughts after you're done with it. So I think it's
right.
like a perfect storm of both entertaining and then make you think.
Yeah.
Well, we know you're working on book 3, but we're talking about book 2 here. Yeah. And let's go back to book 1, Downrange. And I kind of want to ask you, it's more of a craft thing, but what were some of the key things that you learned from your time working with your editor on Downrange that you felt improved maybe the process and or the quality of Firestorm, your own personal growth as an author? What did you pick up from the first go around that you think you might have implemented the second time around that maybe sped things up, improved what the story, where'd that land for you?
Yeah, I learned a lot. David Heifel, tremendous editor, great human being, and just I owe him a lot because he taught me a lot. A couple of things that had to change from Downrange that I automatically built into the story when I did Firestorm, and I didn't do with Downrange, was David is all about jumping into the problem. And so, sometimes you'll have a book and it'll be sort of this slow burn, and that can be okay. But David really taught me, it's like, just jump right in. Like, here's this problem, all this, you can launch the problem and still have this sort of building story, but that can be going on the side. So for me, that was something I didn't do in Downrange. And I think people would have been reading it for a while, like maybe entertained, but like, where is this going kind of a deal. So he really instilled me to sort of start, present that problem early. And I did that in Firestorm. You'll probably notice. So people, there's no like really lag time, yeah, you're getting to know people. Yeah, the characters are doing their funny things, but automatically you're kind of in the story, like, well, what's going to happen here?
Right.
So that was one of the things that he taught me. Another was a little bit more twists and turns. Good guys you think are bad guys you think are good. And I know that sounds pretty obvious. You think, well, you're writing these thrillers that should be, you should be doing that. And I think in Downrange there was that to a degree, but he taught me to think those things through earlier, to kind of like to really sort of like, take people on this adventure and be like, well, I mean, and so that's in Downrange, but when I presented him that first manuscript, it wasn't like it was when you read it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he taught me those things to kind of put those little like weird hints in there to make people go, now is that guy, are we gonna like him or are we gonna hate him? You know what I mean? And so he really helped instill that in me.
Nice.
Well, and that really comes out in this book. I think there's a lot of redemptive story lines in this book.
Right.
Again, I don't want to spoil it for the audience, but there's a male character and a female character who her redemption is a little later, but the male character is an ongoing one. It's really awesome to watch. It's cool to be in his headspace as he's going through this. And
a real funny set, not to interrupt you, but a real funny thing back to David on that character that you're talking about. We won't give it away. But I remember telling him, I guess when I was pitching the book, I said, he's going to become a main character. And then we got through the book, and then after he'd edited, David said, yeah, I turned out I really loved that guy. I didn't think I would. And I was like, oh, wait a minute, why didn't you tell me that before? If you had reservations, you should have told me, But fortunately it worked out. He liked it, but I never knew there were these reservations there about expecting not to like him.
He trusted you to make it. He trusted you to make him like it. That's what
I guess that's thing.
Well,
yeah, that's right. So that's pretty cool. That was really cool. I'm sorry I interrupted, but
no, that's okay. I was finishing my thought anyway. But for some reason, this book got me. It's funny for something that was so action packed, and had me propelling through the pages. All my questions, as I've been thinking about it, have been really kind of philosophical in nature.
yeah, that's good.
But another theme you explore in Firestorm is the kind of the devil is better than the one you don't. And it seems like every couple of decades in the world it's moving faster now, but our attention is focused on a specific enemy or threat, and then we get knocked off balance when something new comes out. We were so Russia focused, then terrorism came out, and then we were so terrorism focused, China and Russia came back on the equation. And I was wondering, because of your background in intelligence, does that big picture truth have something to do with how that finds its way into your books?
Yeah, it does. That's the one thing about the CIA. It teaches you how you come away from that place thinking in a different way. And I know it sounds kind of strange, and since we're talking fiction, do you remember there was I'm sure it was in the book, but I remember it from the movie. Whenever the guy, I can't remember, he says, "The world is gray, Jack." Do you remember that line?
Yeah.
Famous line. Yeah. And I incorporated that theme into Downrange. You might remember he talks about wearing the cowboy hat instead of black. It's not black hat, white hat. It's a nice shade of gray.
Right.
And so that's where he ends up. And coming away from the CIA, you come away with that opinion that there is no black or white, there is no right or wrong. And I don't mean that in the literal sense, but right. I mean, everybody's kind of bad, right? I mean, everybody's got their own motives, but do their motives align with yours, And I don't know, it's strange, but you find yourself with these strange bedfellows when you work in intel. You just do. And in the book, Firestorm, that you find these strange bedfellows, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, now that we just talked about it, you introduced kind of a new character that you thought would become the main and that sort of thing. So are you fleshing out these, and there's a lot of different subplots here, and they all kind of culminate. Are you writing these out individually to bring out the most impact for the individual that's going through this process, towards the finish line? Or are you somehow just keeping everybody kind of like all the plates spinning at once while you're writing chapter after chapter?
Yeah, I just do I just do things the most miserably hard way imaginable is what I do. I just like, I don't know. I mean, because somebody, I was talking to a writer friend of mine a couple of nights ago, and he's like, man, you have that many points of view. And I was like, yeah, it's horrible. I mean, like, because, he said, it reminded him of Traffic, or, one of these movies. I can't remember one of them, there's all these like different things, like, and they all come together. And I was like, I know, that's what I do. And I think it's fun. It's fun creating all these problems. Then you get to the end, you go, oh, like, how did this all like line up together?
Right.
And but you see, they do, right? I mean, there's all, I have these multiple points of view, and everybody's got their own horrible situation that they're dealing with that's all sort of interrelated or interconnected somehow. So no, every time I start a book, I say, man, don't do that again, but I always do. And because I think it's fun, my North Star in writing books, and I'm kind of a goals guy, and I'll put like, what's your North Star? Fun. And I think it's fun. Well, I get a lot of reader feedback, and my favorite piece of feedback I get is people say, man, I got to the end and I couldn't put it down. I was just like chapter after chapter, or, I stayed up way too many late nights trying to get to the end. And so I think, to me, it's fun to put all those characters that hopefully at that point you love, and you want to see them get out of this jam, and you got them all together. So just when you think one person is okay, then somebody else is in this horrifying ordeal, you know what I mean? And so that's kind of how I do it. And so, no, it's not necessarily planned. It's very hard sometimes to line all that up. It's miserable and it's hard as a writer. It's hard to do that, but I think it's fun, and I think people enjoy it, and that's why I do it.
Well, let me tell you, it's fun if fun is your palm sweating, because I will tell you the last fourth or third or whatever it is, when everybody's every damn person in the book's in peril, and they're in a different kind of peril, and you're jumping back and forth from point of view to point of view, and I'm seriously like, I really read that faster than I've read something in a long time, because there was so much going on, so many things I wanted to. And I'm wondering, okay, what's going to happen to this person? How is he going to get this person out? And you masterfully did the how is this person going to get out of the situation with literally multiple characters. Usually it's very predictable when you can kind of figure out what's going to happen with somebody, and that was not at all.
Right.
Yeah.
But to Mike, kind of combining that with Mike's point, when you wrote that, did you write it as we read it, or did you write it like Garrett's point of view, Smitty's point of view, whoever's point of view, or was it kind of a mixture of all that?
As goofy as it sounds, I write it as you read it. Like and I know I should probably just go, let me just tell this story out, and then just leave spaces for those chapters.
Right.
I don't,
because whatever you're doing is working.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. I write it. I mean, and I always say, I was like, well, Taylor, you got this momentum. Why won't you just keep writing that story out? I'm like, well, that's not how people are going to read it.
Yeah.
So I stop with that cliffhanger, and then I jump into that guy's head, and I'll jump into her head, and then I'll jump into whatever. And I just keep going, and I just write it as you read it.
Yeah. And so we all know, going from book one, where you had years and years to write it, and you get book two, and you got a 2-book deal, and now you got about a blink of an eye to finish the second one. Mm-hmm. And then you've got the pressure from the publishing house to do better than you did the first time around, even though you had more time. What were the challenges that you faced going from book one to book two, and everything that you kind of threw onto your shoulders to make this, continue to work for you?
Yeah, it's the bottom line is it's horrible. It's a horrible weight of the world and pressure. And yes, there's all that's like, well, because Downrange, it did well, right? I mean, it was well received. And right. So then it's like, oh, how are you going to top that? And you're like, I don't know. I have no idea how do I top? I don't know. And so there's a lot of pressure, and yeah, it's hard and it's stressful, and I tell you, the time crunch was tough, and that's where you rely on your writer friends. Like Don Bentley's a good friend of mine, and so I'll call up Don. I'll be like, Don, man, how do I fix this? How do I do this? And usually Don's like, I don't know. You tell me, So he's funny, but no, so that's where you rely on your writer friends. But the bottom line is it's a crunch, and so you have all this time to make downrange really beautiful and get just how you want it. And it wasn't like that for Firestorm. There's things I'd go back and I'd want to do more on. I'd want to spend more time on chapters, but that's not the crunch of publishing. That's not the pace. The pace is you get them in, you know, and so it's hard. And you know, here I am and book, you know, about done with book 3. And you know, Firestorm comes out on August 16th. The 3rd book is due August 15th. So I'll literally be like, you know, I mean, you have no time, and that pace is quick. And you know, most writers are doing other things on the side too, and I am. You know, I do screenwriting and all that. So you got all these things going on, and you're trying to balance all that. But the bottom line is, you know, it's it's very hard, and that leap from book 1 to book 2 was very hard. Book 3 was easier. I'm having an easier time because you learn, and then book 4 I think will be easier too. I think I'm gonna as soon as I turn in book 1 or book 2 or book 3, I'm gonna start on book 4 like the next day. That'll be launch day, but I'm gonna at least write a paragraph, because I'm gonna start early. I'm gonna start earlier, you know. And I think every writer always says that, and then the 2 weeks later, just the pace of business is just tough. But no, it's hard. It's the hardest job I've ever had by far.
Wow.
Well, that's a great segue, because of my background is in screenwriting. So what can you tell us about what you're doing screenwriting wise?
Yeah, so I've got a few projects going on. You know, I work with one film company on a detective series that I've been working on, and
cool.
The CEO just went to LA I think last week and met with some people, and so you know, we'll see where that goes. And I've got a meeting or 2 coming up about another project that I'm working on with some other writers, and it's more of a CIA. It's kind of a CIA meets NYPD. I always had this idea of like bringing these 2 together.
Ooh, nice.
And so it's counterintelligence. It's all this kind of crazy stuff, but it's like a drama series that we wanted to make that was more realistic. It was, you know, less the sort of over the top action and more I mean, in some ways we call it like the Sopranos, like where you really get in these people's lives and you see what it's like to be in the CIA dealing with, you know, drama or NYPD, you know. I was
gonna say the Wire version of the CIA, which is
the Wire. Yeah, when we do when we do the pitch deck, the Wire is on that, and True Detective is kind of more like a True Detective kind of a thing. So got that going, and God, I feel like there's a couple more somewhere along the. You know, I just like I said, you go from one thing to the next, and you get knock something off, and then I did some books earlier that aren't published, but people like the story, so I'm working with some people on that and the adaptation. Cool. Yeah, so a lot of stuff going on.
Dang,
that's awesome.
We can't wait to see that part. Well, Taylor, Firestorm was awesome. I mean, it was like Sean said, it's one of the fastest reads we've had this year in a good way, because you just wanted to keep finding out where it was going next. It wasn't like, I got to get through this because I got to, you know, interview, blah, blah, blah. It was more like, oh my God, I forgot what was going on with this guy. Oh, you know, so congratulations from book 1 to, you know, 1 was great. And 2, it's a clear step up that we could tell. And so congratulations on achieving that, because we know that's tougher than hell in this industry. So great job with that, and you survived the main portion of the interview once again. So congratulations on that. But now here we go again, and this is where you probably should just sign off and claim internet difficulty.
We're getting fuzzy. I don't know what's happening. It's the Russians.
It's always them. Damn it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, since I'm the host, I'm going to go first. And so my first question is this: as a proud Texan, how many times have you visited the United States?
I do it every chance I get, you know.
Attaboy. Got to get all those stamps in from the
border. Yeah.
Okay, number 2, since you are a proud Texan, how many seconds remain before college football starts the new season?
Oh man, it's got to be right around the corner. I'm telling you, I've lived in this office. Everything I know is right there on that computer screen. Me typing, 14-hour days trying to get this book in. So I'm sure there's stuff happening soon, but I don't know.
Well, you just lost a bunch of viewers.
I know.
All right, number 3. If 38 I have Snap Pearl boxers,
38.
If I have Snap Pearl boxers, does that make me an honorary Texan?
Snap. Wait, I don't even know it.
Pearl Snap boxers.
Snap pearl boxers.
Ask Don Bentley. See what
I
he
was
says.
gonna say.
I don't think Garrett would consider that if that's what you want to know.
All right. We'll leave it at that. I caught Sean just in time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so my first question is, and this is just, you know how things happen in the literary world where we're close enough where we talk to editors and agents and everybody, and we hear rumors. Is it true that this book started out as a retelling of the Howie Long movie classic of the same name?
That's pure rumor. That's pure rumor.
Unless it improves book sales, and then it's absolutely true.
Yeah, Howie Long. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I'm down.
Probably doesn't though.
I'm not too. No problem.
Actually, by the way, I went to that movie premiere.
Wow,
funny story.
Okay.
Not that funny.
For the free drinks.
So my second question is actually a two-part question. So we'll consider this your second and third question in the lightning round.
Yeah.
Okay.
A, why is Texas Longhorn football so bad? And B, why did Texas A&M have to buy their players?
Well, I went to A&M, so there's no really good answer. My sister went to UT. I went to I'm just, plead the fifth on this one. I don't know.
Okay.
Like I said, all I do is work, guys. All I do is work.
That's a great way to answer. We do not want to mess up his Texas audience or his Texas.
No, I love everyone. That's all I can say.
Oh man,
he is the Gandhi of Texas football.
There's 100 people outside of his house right now picketing.
Yeah, you're right.
Oh man.
But however, I will not. If I ever publish a book, it will not sell well in Texas.
Nobody likes Notre Dame outside of South Bend.
That's not true.
Hey, congratulations on Firestorm. We loved it,
Thank
dude.
you.
This was fantastic. It's gonna do even better than your debut, which obviously was the smash hit. So congrats on making this leap, man. We know 1 to 2 is a tough nail to drive. So congratulations on that.
Well, I appreciate it. Honestly, a lot of hard work went into it, and blood, sweat, and tears, and everything in you goes into those books. So it's great to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, no, we appreciate it. So,
in the last 60 to 80 pages will take you about 45 seconds.
Yeah.
That's true.
It picks up. It picks up.
Yeah.
It was great catching up with you, man.
Same here. Great talking to you guys.
All right. Cheers. We'll see you soon.
Cheers. Yeah.
Johnny boy, we had Taylor Moore on the program today, and Firestorm, his number 2 book after Downrange, and what a tale this was. Fantastic book, and like you said, there was no sophomore slump. This thing rock and rolled from the get-go, and even better than his debut. So folks, please do yourself a favor, go out and get Firestorm. He's got a lot more cooking in the oven, and we talked about that during the episode, but holy smokes, really happy that he's doing well, because the man deserves it. So
absolutely. Garrett Kohl's here to stay. Cheers.
He is. Cheers, everybody. And it's recorded. Maybe we should record this time and see how it goes.
Oh, damn it. I wish we had the not recording thing. That was great. Okay, great.
Outro. Of course it was a good outro.
Perfect outro. Perfect. Mike nailed it. Just want you people at home to know. Don't doubt it.
Yeah, because this recorded version won't be anywhere close as good.